Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vickie. I'm a master transformational coach specializing in habit change. And this podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach and is all about embracing our mosaic life. And some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. I am your host, and I have a special guest with me today, Ryan Montis, and I'll let him introduce himself in just a moment. But if you have any ahas or questions, please leave a comment or a voice message. And remember to like, subscribe, share. So now let's get started. All right, Ryan, you want to go ahead and let us know who you are?
Yeah, thank you, Vickie, and thank you for having me on your show. Hi, everybody. My name is Ryan Montis. I live in Canada. I'm heavily involved in the coaching industry. So most of what I do is in support of coaches, NLP practitioners, and particularly hypnotherapists. Most of the people in my world are hypnotherapists, in addition to other skill sets. And so I support them with skills training, with business training, and most recently, a shift towards social media marketing and content marketing and client attraction training. So I have a membership that people can be a part of that includes coaching and fun meetings and training and all kinds of good stuff. In terms of my background, like I said, I'm Canadian. I used to be a Canadian soldier. Before that, I was a private investigator operating in both Ontario and Quebec, and I've had a long time passion for both personal development and travel. And so I guess there's my intro.
All right, wonderful. Well, I will let everybody know the way I know Ryan is I had become a health and a life coach, and I was looking for something to give it just a little more punch. And I was toying with the idea of hypnosis because I had had hypnosis before and it had been very helpful in my life. And I don't even know, maybe there was an ad that popped up or something, but you were actually the first person I took hypnosis certifications with. And it was amazing. And that just opened so many doors for me. And I am I am actually part of your membership thing now, and getting so much education, and not only education, because that's the thing, we can learn and learn and learn, and if we don't implement things, it's a waste, right? But what I love about what you're doing is that you've got everything clear cut down, you've got calls to action, you've got all these things, and that was great in itself. And then you decided to add in the public speaking part, and it was like, oh, I'm upgrading to the next level because I want that,
Yeah.
So you have been very instrumental in my life for a bit of time now with getting me started with hypnosis. And one of the things I will share with everybody that I love about you is that your memberships are not astronomical in price, but they're astronomical in material and information. And when I have had an issue or a question about something, I just pop in a message to you and you get back to me pretty quickly. And every time you do that, I think, damn, how has he got enough time to make all of this work and do all these things? Because it's a level of support that some people don't give you when you put it in a high dollar, And so I just want to commend you with how well you facilitate this whole thing and just help in such a personal way that it's just so appreciated. And I wanted to make sure, I had you on here, that I told you that because I do so appreciate your level of support.
Well, thank you very much, Vickie. I very much appreciate that. And yeah, I was thinking about it recently, and I'm very much, in a position right now where I can kind of break a lot of the rules of traditional coaching, because I've laid the groundwork for the last few years. So, I can afford to kind of give a lot of value, as much as I can, not to toot my own horn, and make it very accessible, for as many people as I can. And if I can do that and still be successful, then why not? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I think one of the things that kind of sets me apart is, as much as I have freedom to run my business however I want, and to set up my schedule however I want, and to kind of do what I want, which is the joy of being an entrepreneur and a coach, I still do treat this as a job. I rent an office. I come to my office strictly 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. Often I'm early, often I stay late. And during those hours I'm working. If people shoot me a message, I get back to them. If
Yeah.
to add content, I do it because I love it. Because I
Yeah.
love it.
Well, it's that old saying, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, because, and it's like, that's how I feel about what I'm doing with my coaching, and especially with the podcast. I feel like the podcast is my baby and my self-care. And, but, there are things in coaching for me, because I'm not at the level that you are by any means, that still feel like a task. But I'm getting to the mindset now where those tasks get a little bit exciting, just to see if I can get on the other side of them,
Yeah.
And before, it was like they would stop me in my tracks, and I would just like, I think I'm going to go watch something on TV because this is too freaking hard, and I got where I was doing that a lot. And so and I couldn't even really tell you what changed so much, and to change that mindset. I
Yeah.
think it was some kind of education, or maybe something that you said in one of your lessons, and I thought, okay, I need to reframe how I'm looking at this, and start looking at my why, and get into a stronger place into my why.
Yeah.
And then when something does get a little difficult, I can push past it and celebrate that. So it's definitely been a journey for that with my business and everything, because I love coaching. If I didn't have to do all the technical stuff, and the posting, and all these things that you have to do to actually get your billboard out, right? Because I had someone tell me, and hell, it could have been you, I don't know,
Yeah.
but one of the things that they said, and I'll share with the listeners and the viewers, because some people will see this and it's not just an audio,
Yeah.
is that somebody told me that if you have it's kind of like when you're going down the interstate, and it's a deserted area of the interstate, and you see this big billboard that says Joe's Barbecue House, 10 miles, take a right. And you go and you have the best food. You tell everybody about it. But if that billboard had not been there, you would not have known that it was there. You wouldn't have been able to try the food. And they would have just been sitting there with this delicious thing that everybody wanted, and nobody knew. And so the way I was doing my business before, it was like, I didn't have my billboard out, or it was a little bitty billboard that people would zip past it and they didn't see it. And so now I'm diligently doing the task needed to be able to put my billboard out, so that people who need me and my help can actually find me, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to ask you a question, because you've been doing the hypnosis, and you've taught people to not only to be hypnotists, but to teach hypnosis. You've done NLP classes. You've done so much, and I know you come from a military background. So how did you get from that military place to the mindset of, this is what I want to do? What happened in there to take you on this path?
Yeah, there were a lot of pieces to that puzzle that all kind of culminated, around the year 2019. Um, right from my late teens, I developed a strong interest in personal development, because I wasn't really happy with who I was being and what I was doing and the results that I was getting in life. There was a lot of suffering in the way that I was living my life, just related to lack of confidence and fear and social discomfort and kind of all these little things. So that was sort of happening. And it was out of kind of a reluctance to seek professional assistance at that stage in my life, which looking back, I would have benefited immensely from going to a mentor or a life coach or a therapist or anything of the sort, but I didn't want to. And,
Right.
and of course, in many, for many people, there's a stigma attached to those things as well. And there certainly was for me at that time. So the only route that was even remotely reasonable was the self-help route and the self-help literature. And I was so afraid to even go down that route. I remember like standing in one of the big bookstores in Canada, like over in the magazine section and looking over at the self-help section and just being like, no, I can't go over there. But if a stranger sees me looking at those books,
Yeah.
like this actually happened. And so one of the first things I ever bought on the internet was a self-help book, like how to get over anxiety and social anxiety was one of the first things. And even then, I remember like waiting for the mail person to show up so I could take it directly
Hope
from
it's
them.
in a brown wrapper.
Yeah, so that like my roommates wouldn't know I bought this book. So and then I read the book and it was not that good, but I went on to other ones and and that started this kind of hobby, this passion of personal development, which led me to the understanding of the unconscious mind and limiting beliefs and all of these things that would eventually become the keys to transforming my life. And also, kind of at the same time, I grew up in a household of entrepreneurs. Both of my parents were entrepreneurs and still are.
Yeah, mine as
And
well.
so, and yours as well, right? So I didn't have sort of any significant models in my life of a normal employee life or a normal kind of employment lifestyle. My father was always the primary earner in my home, and I know he had a normal job when I was very little, but I remember being still quite small when he started his first business and leaned heavily into entrepreneurship and all the challenges and all the benefits that went along with that. So anyway, so flash forward to 2019. I've done a career as a private investigator. I've done a few years, 5 years in the Canadian military, and now I've left the military and I'm ready for the next stage. And it's just all the experiences up until that point really only led me to one possible next step, which was something in, personal development, coaching, and entrepreneurship. And sort of the nexus of all those points was starting a training company in NLP, hypnotherapy, and the other tools that had been so powerful in me transforming myself. So I think that's to answer your question.
How
from
did
where I
you
was
how
to-
did you decide that hypnosis is what I want?
Yeah. So during those years, from around the time I was 19 to the time I was maybe 25, 26, 27, 28, that's when a lot of change and development happened for me. A lot of coming out of my comfort zone, a lot of confronting the limiting beliefs that existed within me, the fears, the anxieties, coming to terms with the fact that just the results that I was getting in my life were the result of the actions I was taking and the decisions that I was making and changing that. And so, as I said, I really dove into the science and the literature and the training of how to make those changes. And, I started to notice after reading many books and listening to many lectures and purchasing many trainings, the common threads that people were using that were getting the best results, the quickest results, and the most effective means of change. And it always came back to the subconscious mind, the unconscious mind, the beliefs that we hold within ourselves, the programming that we hold within ourselves, and the specific tools that people were using to make changes to that programming. And there's a million different great tools for doing that. Probably more than a million. There's probably a billion, great tools for doing that. But the ones that kept coming into my awareness, and the ones that the people who I really admired were always mentioning or alluding to or using, were hypnotherapy, neurolinguistic programming, and then later on, I discovered a thing called timeline therapy techniques, which is really just a combination, a special combination of NLP and hypnotherapy. So it was, that's how I landed on hypnosis and NLP and timeline therapy and NLP coaching. It was just from, keeping that keen eye open for what is the common thread amongst all the people who have been on a similar journey to me and are now out there kicking butt and rocking and rolling and having a great time, basically.
Wonderful. Well, for me, it's like I didn't start my journey in this stuff when I was in my late teens, early 20s. I started much later, but I've always, even when I was in high school and everything, I remember being fascinated with why people do the things they do, because a lot of times people seem to almost like, I don't know why I did what I did, and I kept thinking, well, why is that? Why is that? So it was always in the back of my mind, but I didn't have a clue that it was anything I could find out. You know what I mean? It was like, well, that's just something to ponder on. And, I don't remember the first time I actually got my first self-help book, to be honest with you, but maybe it's because it's been such a long time. But it's like, I know I have got a plethora of books, and then over the years I got started with my health and life coaching because I was having such an issue with always gaining and losing the weight. And I was so sick and tired of doing this thing over and over and over again. I kept thinking there's got to be an answer. Why am I still doing this? And so that's when I decided I was going to become a health coach, because I thought if I become a health coach, it'll change my life. And if I never use it for anybody else, that's okay. And it was quite expensive for me at the time. And I thought if I put all this money into it and I do that, then I will definitely finish it. And it was so life-changing for me to do that. Then I started, well, what's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next step? And one of the things that I tell people all the time is that you don't ever get to a place where it's like, I'm done. You get to a place where it's, wow, what else can I learn to facilitate this? How can I help people do things quicker? How can I help people to do things in a different way? And it just becomes with your program thing, it's like you keep adding different things to it that just kind of like draw you in, because it's like, I got to know that. And so I want to real quick, because I know one of the reasons that you are doing the part that you just added that I love. We've only had one intro session and I'm in love with it already. Is the public speaking part. And I know you had said that you were part of Toastmasters, and you were you were doing a lot of things with Toastmasters. And can you kind of touch a little bit on that? Because to me, that's fascinating too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'm glad you enjoyed the first session.
I did. I can't wait for the next one. I thought every 2 weeks, damn it.
No, it's going to be every week. It's going to be
Is
every
it?
week.
Well, I'll have to look at my calendar again, because I swore it was every 2 weeks. And I thought, damn, I want this every week. So now I'll go back. I feel better now.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah, so the Toastmasters was an important chapter in my life, and Toastmasters, for those that are not aware, is a brilliant and wonderful not-for-profit public speaking organization that is organized into clubs, or you might call them chapters, all around the world. They're in over 100 different countries, I believe. And it's just small groups of, very friendly and supportive people that get together and go through a process to improve their ability to speak and communicate. And there's leadership elements. And so I was involved in that in some capacity or another for several years. And it was sort of during a time in my life where I was just binging as many personal development and growth processes and opportunities as I possibly could. So amongst being a member and eventually an executive in the Toastmasters organization, I was doing improv, training at various theater companies.
I wanted to do that too, believe it or not.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of
Yeah,
fun. I
yeah,
recommend anybody who wants to try it,
yeah.
try it, because you'll probably enjoy it. So did the improv. I did training in stand-up comedy, and I did a little bit of stand-up comedy, all kinds of different things to, force myself out of my comfort zone and force myself to develop these new skills. And, almost always not knowing exactly what the end result was going to be of doing that. But Toastmasters was one of the most significant ones because it really gave me my voice. It really gave me full and unfettered access to my innate ability to communicate. And what I tell people now is that when you get better at communicating, you get better at public speaking, you get better at sharing your message, and you look back, it's not really as if like you installed something that wasn't there before. It's more like you took away the filters, the self-imposed filters, the fears, the hesitation. We tend to stifle ourselves when it comes to communicating with other people. And we know that to be the case because sometimes you can, most people have this experience where you're with your best buddy or you're with somebody you feel very comfortable with. You can talk all day, every day, endlessly, express yourself, and about things things you don't know, whatever. All of a sudden, you're in front of a stranger or a couple of strangers, and you no longer have access to that
That's
information.
right.
For right? The filter is up, the block is up. And so because of that, because of how transformational and powerful that experience was for me, and I did have the opportunity to go into that club as somebody who was really not good at public speaking and very fearful about it. And within a few months, that I was doing much better and I was able to speak in front of groups. And, I found that people found me quite naturally funny and charismatic in my speaking, which was really nice. And then I went on to, take on the role of the coach within those clubs. And I was teaching and I was leading and I was the vice president of public relations. And then I became the president of a chapter. And so I've taken everything that I learned there and I brought it with me to my coaches that I work with now, and I've added it as an element. And by no means do I want to say I'm like copying the brilliant program that is Toastmasters, but I'm creating my own program that gets a little bit more specific in the skills, specifically for coaches and entrepreneurs. And that's what you were mentioning. We had our first kickoff meeting for that last week, and I'm really excited to take that style of transformation and bring it to the people that are working with me and learning from me, so that they too can remove those filters, end that self-stifling and communicate their message effectively to whoever they want.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, I'm super excited about it because I have wanted to do Toastmasters. And if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, some of the thing is the reason I didn't do it was because it was at such an early time of the day for the club that was near me. And it really wasn't that near me. So it was a good drive. And so it was like, it just didn't seem possible. But if I'm really, really honest, I think it just scared the shit out of me, to be honest with you, that having to stand up in front of these people. And it's funny because I can do public speaking where I go and I teach like at a place where there's a small group, and I can do it on here. I can do all those things. And where I get the biggest angst about it is when I'm around people that know as much or no more than me about the subject that I'm talking about, because then it's like, it feels like more judgment is available. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
And so for me, it's like the going and doing the public speaking with this group of Toastmasters. I envisioned when I thought about it that I would stand up there, I'd get nervous, I might cry, I might, all kinds of things. And then somebody back there would judge me. See, makes me emotional just thinking about that. And so I avoided it. And so I'm really grateful for you and bringing this to in a totally different capacity so that it doesn't feel so massive. And I will tell you that I my goal with your program is to not only learn as much as possible, but I want to get into a leadership role, because you talked a little bit about that. And I thought, oh, that feels so good. I want to do that. And So there's so many places I want to take me personally and my business. And so I'm thanking God every day, because it's like, as soon as I have this inclination that I want to step in this direction and do something different, all of a sudden something pops in. It's like, wow, I was just thinking about that, and it just is mind blowing to me that how God and the universe just start sending you the things when you're doing the work to help you make it happen.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and I totally understand what you're saying. And you know, to go back to your earlier point, and I mentioned this at the meeting the other day. I was petrified, before I went into my first Toastmasters meeting, and I remember the exact parking spot that I was parked in when I was like staying in my car, like not willing to go inside to this first meeting. And then I did, eventually did go in, and it was a very friendly crowd, but I don't think the like adrenaline and cortisol, fully dissipated from my system for several days or weeks after that, because it was just so like
Yeah.
intense. And I think that's to your point, that's kind of what makes my version, or our version that we've got now, special, because it's even more approachable and even more comfortable. And a Toastmasters club is probably one of the most supportive and loving environments you can imagine on this planet. But we have kind of one level of additional support and comfort, in that everybody in our little speaking group is a coach or is a hypnotherapist, and we're all kind of in the same greater kind of hypnosis or coaching community. And I was talking about this the other day. We face a lot of the same struggles, and I think one of the ways that human beings bond most quickly and most deeply is by facing similar challenges together. So when you're in a room with a group of people who are also on this journey of marketing themselves online in the service of other people, and facing the challenges and facing all the different things that we encounter, we go into this environment knowing that we're all in the same boat, and that really sets us up to not only be supported but feel supported as we're growing, which is very vital,
Yes.
for developing these kinds of skills.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I have always, well, not always, a lot of times I felt was a, a hindrance for me, was that I had to make a bold jump in something to make myself do it. And it's like, if I had gone to the Toastmasters meeting and I was sitting in the parking lot, it would have been hell to get out of the car and go in. But if I had gotten up that early and got there and was sitting there, I would make myself do it. And like, there's one story I'll share real quick is, I had decided I had, and I won't go through the whole details because it's irrelevant to what we're talking about right now, but I had gotten to a place where I decided, okay, I've got to make myself get exercise. I've got to do it. There's no way around it. And so the same as the God and the universe giving you things, as soon as I made that decision, I opened up the newspaper, back when you read the newspaper. I opened up the newspaper, and there was this ad for a fundraiser thing for, I think it was a heart association or whatever. And it was a marathon, half marathon, a marathon. And I thought, oh, that's it. I'll go do that. So I go to the meeting, and I didn't even know what the hell it really was. I knew you walked or you ran. I didn't have a clue what the distance was. And at the time, I couldn't even walk from my front door to the mailbox without being out of breath. And so I get to this meeting, and they tell that I was going to do a half marathon, and they said, well, you can walk or you can run. I thought, okay, good. I can walk. That's no problem. And then they said, and it's 13 point, I can't remember if it's 1 or 2 miles, whatever it is. And I thought, oh my God, I can't even walk to the mailbox. How the hell am I going to do this? And I thought, I'm doing this. It was in the spring. I didn't have to do the event. Wasn't until November on Thanksgiving Day. And I thought, okay. And so I did. I mean, I pushed myself, I plugged, and I worked my ass off to get to the place where I could do this. And like I said, I couldn't even walk from one mailbox to the next without being winded. By the time I got toward the end, even halfway through, I was walking 4 miles a day and 13 miles on Sunday. And just to train. And so I lost tons of weight during the process, didn't change my eating at all, which was the biggest problem when the thing was over. But I did it and I made it. I did it, walked it in 4 hours and felt like I had climbed Mount Everest when I got done. But that's the place most of the time I have to put myself in to move something, right? And that's why I said I had to get into, for my business, I had to get into my why deeper so that I had something that was pushing me besides an event. And so it's amazing how for a long time I thought that was a hindrance, that was the only way I could make myself do it. But now that I've learned a lot, it's like it's not a hindrance, it's a gift. Because a lot of people can't push themselves through, even if they have something like that. They give up or they don't do it, you know, because it wasn't easy. And I was doing it by myself because I worked on Saturdays and that's when they did all their group training, right? So I had to do it all on my own. But now I can see it as a gift that I have, that I can find something deep inside to move me. And so when you look at your life and all the different things that you've done and what's changed about your life and everything, what do you feel like? And I know you've talked about some of the stuff, but is there something so deep inside that sometimes it'll bring you to tears to think, oh my God, I can't believe that I used to think that was something that was wrong with me, but now, oh my gosh, I know it was a gift.
Ooh, it used to be something I thought was wrong. I mean, I'm probably at the point now where I'm taking a lot of those things for granted, and they've just become like, because I think there's an arc there where, you have these challenges that you face and they're either internal or external and they seem like a burden. And then you work your way through them, and then you have this realization, well, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for all those hardships or those challenges. And then eventually you just, kind of life goes on. So I bet if I thought about it for a few minutes, there would be plenty. And I mean, just, a very obvious one would be, some pretty severe anxiety when I was a young man, social anxiety, general anxiety, um, uh, relationship anxiety, all those things. And if I didn't have to address those and escape them, I may not have gone down this personal development road, and I may not be in this business that I am today that gives me a level of freedom and joy that most people, unfortunately don't get to experience. So that would be a huge one, right? Like now that I think about it and you pose this question, things were tough for me. There were times in my life where things were very, very, very tough. And but if they hadn't been and they hadn't led me down the path that I went down, I wouldn't be celebrating the things that I'm celebrating today. So that's a big one. And just that, and then, the public speaking and just being seen and being heard as well, having to start from a point of disadvantage compared to an average person. Like I wasn't just like afraid of public speaking, when I was a younger person, it was like extreme, right?
Yeah.
And so having to work my way through that now has set me up to be effective at helping other people to work their way through that. So I think the list might go on, but there's a couple of them for you.
Well, I know anxiety can be really, really devastating. And I don't think my daughter suffers with it as much now as she did. But I remember one time with her, we went, we were in Denver and we were going to go to this little shopping area and get out and go look around. Right. And when we got there was a lot of people around and stuff and everything. And all of a sudden she almost started hyperventilating. And she said, I can't get out of the car. I can't do this. And I said, well, let's get out, because I didn't suffer from anxiety from just normal situations. Now you put me in certain situations, I could be very anxious, but to me, those were normal situations. And so it wasn't something that I experienced. So I said, well, let's just get out. You'll be fine. She said, no, I can't do it. And so at the beginning I was like, damn it, we drove all this way over here. We're, and I wasn't being very supportive. I didn't say those things, but they were going through my mind.
Yeah.
And then I looked at her face and I could see, I mean, the anxiety in her face, and she was sweating and she was almost shaking. And I said, okay, let's just go back. And, so I've seen the how anxiety just really can, hold you back from doing things that, other people just take totally for granted. So I can appreciate that you had a level of anxiety that kind of held you back in life, and that you were able to overcome that and make it a gift that you had to push you into a different arena, so to speak. And so it's one of the things I love about my podcast is that I have not talked to one solitary person that didn't have something that just kind of pushed them from where they were to this whole new life, that they wouldn't change anything about that life because it helped them to propel to this one. And so it's always fascinating to me. Like I said, I've always been curious about why people do the things that they do. And so I think that's why I enjoy doing this so much. And so I want to ask you, we've talked about, you were in the military, we've talked about your anxiety, and we've talked about how you got into hypnosis and doing the programs and stuff that you're doing now. So do you have in your mind, is there like a project that's coming up that has been just kind of tickling in the back of your head, other than what we're doing right now in our, what is it called now? It's not the simple social sanctuary. It's the,
Well, we've got the simple social sanctuary, which is the normal membership. And then there's the engage level,
that's
which
the engage.
has the public speaking.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, but to answer your question, yeah, I do have another project in the works. So this whole year since I launched the membership, I've really been kind of transforming the offers. The last few years, I was focusing on NLP certifications, hypnosis certifications, and training coaches in these specific skills and giving them certifications or training in how to do the coaching. And this year, and those were all what we would call in this industry high ticket offers, because it was intensive training, 100% live in most cases, or a hybrid of live, one-to-one calls and whatever. This year I decided to, and this is why I said earlier, I'm kind of in a position where I'm lucky I can break some of the rules of being effective in coaching. I put all of my high ticket offers basically on hold, or most of them on hold, so that I could focus on, this $7 membership, right? Because I wanted
not
to,
if you upgrade, it goes up. So
yeah, there's a higher premium tier, which is also not
still not very expensive. I mean, it was like, oh, mind blown.
Yeah, and that's most people's reaction,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I wanted to make it work. I wanted to make it work this year and have a highly accessible support program for coaches and hypnotherapists that was also really highly valuable. And it's the kind of thing that not anybody can just launch at any time, because it meant a dip in my revenue for the last 9 months. So, and that's fine, because I built a strong foundation over the last years. So now that I've got the membership rocking and rolling and people love it, like, the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, and and it makes sense, because I'm giving them gold bars for the price of $1 bills, basically, right?
Or pennies.
Pennies, yeah. And we've got the engaged level with the public speaking, which is something that any online entrepreneur or coach or anybody in a similar business must have dialed in. So the next thing to answer your question is I'm the idea of a pilot project, a beta program is rolling around in my head, because I always want to give the people what they want, and for those of you in business, give the people what they want is pretty good advice when it comes to making offers. And so I've had a lot of people say, well, we love the membership, we love the engage level, but we want more and more intensive support, and maybe more specific support. And so I'm just right now finalizing the details for a beta program for a 12-week social media and content and business coaching for people that want to work kind of intensively and do a sprint and get a whole bunch of things dialed in their business and install some, good, powerful systems for connecting with their clients. And so I've got a meeting with actually the first person who might enroll tomorrow.
Okay.
So that's
Okay.
coming. I don't even have a name for it yet,
All
but
right.
that's
Well,
that's next
well,
thing.
I definitely want to
Basically,
know all about that.
you definitely want to know all about that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I will ask, so thinking about this program, because you've done enough that you know a little bit about it. So is it something where it takes off where what we're studying now in your portal? Is it take from the end of that, so it's like you're progressing from that, or is it kind of from the beginning of that, so people, instead of doing this monthly thing, would get this blast of that stuff?
Yeah. So the difference would be, and this is something that I've really come
I'm sure
to.
this is something I'll know on the call, but I'm just going
Yeah,
to go ahead and put it out there.
yeah, put it out there. I mean, this is good. Your question directly speaks to, sort of offer creation of value tiers, which is relevant. If anybody's listening to this who is a coach or an entrepreneur, this is relevant for everyone. Because the information, like when you're an expert in something, you're a coach in something, the information that you're putting out there doesn't really change depending on the value level, right? Like the principles at my $7 program are pretty much the same as the principles at my, $50 a month program. And the overarching principles are going to be the same in this more intensive, beta program. What's different is going to be the level of attention and implementation, right? So it's not like, in the beta program, it's going to be radically different ideas for what I'm giving away in my membership program. It's going to be kind of the same ideas, except I'm going to be holding the hand of the people in the program. And it's more of a, let's do this together rather than in a group membership, which is very powerful. The members are, they do on their own, and then they can come with their challenges to sort of their wider group coaching calls, right? So it's mainly a difference in implementation, in intensity, and in access to me specifically. And of course there's going to be some systems that just don't make sense to teach in the lower tier membership because they're too time intensive. So those will be introduced in this beta program.
That's what I was looking for, because I'm thinking, if you've been in the social sanctuary for a while and you've been going through the stuff, you've been implementing a lot of this stuff and bringing it up in the group and that kind of thing. And like I said, you are so good. If there's a problem or an issue that I can't figure out, I can pop you a little question and you get back with me. And I know what you're talking about is a totally different level. And so the thing I was curious about is, if I've already implemented a bunch of that stuff, do you just kind of look at the stuff I've already done and say, okay, you've done that stuff, let's start here?
It's going to be a little bit of that. It's going to be, a little bit of looking at, the people who are in the beta group, what do they got going on right now? And how can we dial it in better and, make it easier for them, or basically increase their results without increasing their energy expenditure. That's really important.
Ooh,
that's
that
the
sounds
value of
good.
kind of like a higher tier program, right?
Yeah.
But then also, to give you like a specific example, one thing that we don't have time and that doesn't really make sense to get too deep into in the wider group membership is like how to run a strategy call or how to run a discovery call where you're in a sales role, you got a potential client in front of you, and you need to guide them through a process where they both are acutely aware of what's going on in their life, what your service is, and if it's a good choice for them. Because that's something that if we don't handle well, we don't make sales, and then the client doesn't get the transformation that might transform their life. And that's one of those skills that it makes sense to learn
Do more
in
one-on-one.
a small group or a one-on-one where we can go through like with your specific niche, and you can even bring back recordings of calls you've done.
Oh, that sounds good.
Deconstruct them, that kind of thing. So that's just one example of something that I can teach it in a group membership at a lower price point, but I can't like hold your hand while you implement it.
Right.
It's a big thing. But in this, in a 12-week limited container where we only have a certain number of people in there, and we have specific time allotted for that, those kind of skills we can dive into more.
Ah, that sounds perfect. Perfect. So I need to schedule one of those calls with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Of course.
I'll be doing that when we get off here.
Sounds good. That sounds good.
Yeah,
Love to
because
talk
I'm
to you.
excited about not that you had anxiety, but I'm excited that the anxiety led you to this place, and that you are here to help so many of us that and I'm only speaking for myself, that feel like they flounder a lot of times because they just don't know how to do certain things. And I'll just share a little quick story that helps me to explain to somebody what somebody like you does. And this may sound like it has nothing to do with anything, but I've shared this story before and it means a lot. Okay. I'll just preface with that. I moved into a new house, and I had a lawnmower that I'd only had for a year, but it hadn't been used because I had somebody that did my yard. So it'd been sitting for a bit. And when I went to crank it up, the first time I needed to cut my grass, it wouldn't work. And it was like, damn it, I don't know what to do. So I didn't have anybody that I could call, and I didn't have a car that I could put it in the car to get it anywhere. So I started my Google search, and I put in about the lawnmower, and I finally came up with a bunch of videos and found out that it was the spark plug. Well, now this is a new lawnmower. I go look at it and I don't even see a damn spark plug. So then I have to go back to more videos to show me where the spark plug is. So I find one of those, and then the guy would show you, open in this case, there's the spark plug, and then he would show it holding it in his hand. So I think, okay, great. So then I go to the lawnmower. I don't know how to get the damn thing out of the lawnmower and in my hand. I twisted it. I did I couldn't figure it out. So I had to go and I watched more videos, more. Nobody showed you. They all took for granted that you knew how to get the damn spark plug out. So I end up going to my neighbor, and he comes over and he says, and I remember I was new here, so I didn't even know him. And he says, well, you need a special tool to get it out of the lawnmower. He said, it should have come with the lawnmower. And I said, well, I've had the lawnmower for over a year. I don't have a clue where this tool is. So I had to write down all the information, go to Home Depot. They had to help me. I got the tool, got back, took it out, and I was fine. But the thing that people like you do is you not only show you where it's at and how it looks at the end, but you show the damn process of taking it out of the lawnmower and into your hand. And to me, that's an amazing skill, because like I said, when I looked at videos about this lawnmower, there was not one video, not one of these men showing this, because they all knew how to take it out. Yeah. And I didn't. And so it was like, from that point, I wanted to go in and say, okay, here, anybody that's looking at this lawnmower, this is how you take it out. But I thought, well, that's a waste of my time. Let them figure it out. But I know that sounds like it's a long story to say something so simple, but it is a gift to be able to take people into the little incremental steps that they need to make to create something.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a wonderful metaphor. I love that story. That's great.
Okay. I always feel silly when I start it, because I think people are thinking, what the hell is that got to do with a lawnmower?
No, it's very true. I mean, that is the value of a good coach, right? And that's like all that hassle, all that headache. If you have a real human being in front of you who's done the thing before, well, it's just one simple question, one simple solution. You save hours of time. And when we look at like a coaching relationship, whether it's a business coaching or life coaching, anxiety coach, relationship coach, whatever, it's the same thing. You could go and read the books and figure it out on your own in weeks, months, or years, or never, potentially, or you could hire the person who's an expert in that thing, and they'll get you there as fast as is reasonable, right?
Yes.
And that's why I think people are really realizing that, and realizing the value of time and energy. And coaching in general has just exploded for that exact reason, because of the lawnmower, because of the
yes. And I will say, the older I get, the more I realize how valuable time is. And it's not like it's not valuable when you're young, because my children's father passed away from a massive heart attack, and he was 43. Is that right? Yeah, I think 43. And so his life ended then. So he didn't even have those years from 43 to where I'm at now. And so it is such a valuable thing to make sure you're utilizing your time for things that give you joy and make you feel like life is better. And, so time is an amazing commodity that I think everybody needs to make sure they're not just willy-nilly wasting time when they could have someone like you, like me, to help them to create the changes. Like I did a video this morning, and it was all about the people who, they're not getting in front of the camera. They're not going to visit friends, or they're not going to the party or anything because something about their body or their life is holding them back. And, and it's time to start living. It's time to start, not letting those things get in the way. If there's something that you want to change in your life, find a way to make it happen and get help to make it happen, but don't just stop living. And that's what I think a lot of people end up doing. And so I guess we're kind of close on time. So and I want to be respectful of your time. And so just really quick, do you have any last tidbit of advice that you would give anybody that's watching or listening?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just want to echo what you just said. I think that was brilliant advice. Life, for better or worse, is short, and you have no way of knowing how short or how long it'll be. So commit to doing things, to improve your life, serve others around you if you can, and make being happy a priority. The quality of your life is determined by how you set your priorities, everybody. So set good ones, right?
Yes.
Ask yourself, well, what's really important to you.
Yeah, definitely. And that comes to my last bit of advice that I've started putting on each one of my podcasts. And it's just this: the best way to predict the future is create it. So what are you creating? And with that, I will say thank you so much, Ryan, for being here and sharing your wonderful story and your presence, because for some reason your voice and the way you are as a person and your energy always makes me feel like it's home. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Vickie. And again, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for your kind words. That's lovely.
All right. All right. Bye, everybody. Mwah.